Hello, everyone. My name is Lea, and I'm the current LCP of Graz. And I have the honor to talk to you in the whole LCP education part about team management, which is probably one of the most important parts about being an LCP, but it for sure is the most important part about being a team leader. So, therefore, I want to walk you before we start with the whole presentation a bit through the agenda of today. So, in this session, we will be talking about how to select your team, the team personalities, team phases, team routine, and team meetings. Um, Team standards are also a part and probably like a very huge part about being an LCP and being a team leader. But this was covered by Alex yesterday or a few days ago, I think. So this is why I will not be touching upon it today. But in case you have any questions about how to implement team standards as an LCP, just feel free to reach out to me. You will get my contact data at the end of this whole presentation. As you can see, there are a few things in today's agenda that maybe not the most self-explanatory when talking about leading a team. For example, why are you talking about how to select a team and what the hell are team personalities? But I think you will understand a bit better throughout the whole flow. And yes, I think you enjoyed, and yeah, that's it. So, first of all, we're going to talk about how you can select your team because I think that leading your team starts with the selection process. And I think we get way more knowledge on how we can actually select, how we can actually like lead a team throughout our whole LCP journey and throughout being a team leader in Isaac in general. But we hardly ever get information about why we should select certain people into our team or what questions we have to ask ourselves before we select people in our team. And that's why I want to give you just a super brief overview about how you can make sure you select your perfect team for yourself. And it's just a really short intro. It's basically a lot of questions that you have to ask yourselves, let's be real, because in the end, there is no perfect way to select a team. In order to find out what members you need in your team, you need to have a lot of self reflection first. You need to understand what your strengths and weaknesses are. And based on that, you can choose members in your team or like VPs that will balance your weaknesses, for example, and also where you know that they have qualifications that are needed for that role. So, for example, you want to get someone who is very detail oriented and who likes to have a broad overview, but also understand the very details of something when you look for a finance person. You want to look for a very outgoing person for whom it's easy to talk to people or like network when you have someone for operations, for example. And for TM, you want to have a very structured, self driven person. So you need to know about all of those things before you actually choose the people. And then you can also like go a little bit and like headhunt the people that you're looking for, which is also a nice thing to do. And then basically you just have to ask all the questions all over again for the people that you could take into your team. What are their strengths and weaknesses? How will they between each other balance them out? And so on. And in the best possible scenario, you will have a team that is super diverse because then you can actually make sure that you cover a very broad field of topics, of knowledge, of things that they enjoy. And then this is a great balance to work with. Also, if you have your team selected, feel free to click here in the session output. This is a quick link to the blue, like to the holy grail of team leaders of Isaac, which is the blue code. So if you've never heard of that, make sure to check it out. It's super helpful, especially when leading a team for 1 year as you do as an LCP. So really make sure you check that out. It's a great resource for leaders. Yes, and then we come already to the team personalities. So, by asking the questions from before and figuring out what the strengths and weaknesses are of a person, this is already a good first step to figure out the team personalities. But team personalities further are, I think, a very important thing to understand if you work together with a team very closely for 1 year. Because this will help you just figure out how you need to work with them, what you need to explain them, what you want to appreciate about them so they feel even more appreciated. Um, what you like, how you need to communicate with them, how they need to communicate with each other, what might be um, a possible conflict area, and so on. All of those things. And there are, depending on what theory you look into, probably 1,000 team personalities. But I looked into a very specific one from which I can't remember the name now. Amazing. And this defines 6 team personalities, which are the rebel, the thinker, the imaginer, the persister, the harmonizer, and the promoter. I will quickly strive all of them, but I will not go too much into detail. You can read along, but I think it's also a bit tiring for you to listen to me explaining all of them in super detail. So the first one is the rebel, and although he's called rebel, it's a very creative and playful person, and this is a person for whom it's super easy to like make every task fun. And they're super solution oriented, they're enthusiastic, they're positive, they're just like fun people to work with. Then there are the thinkers who are very good in organizing, planning, in structuring ideas. They're taking responsibility very gladly because they just enjoy it. They explain things very strict and clear, and like because they're so logical, it's super easy for them to explain complex ideas in a very easy way. And they're the ones that need to be recognized for their thoughts and accomplishments. Then we have an imaginer who is very introspective, imaginative. They like to observe things. They like to understand things into the deepest details so they can understand something. They often need a bit of solitude, and like all those like team and like huge groups can be a bit like overwhelming sometimes. And also, maybe a negative side of them is sometimes they just like talk without giving facts. I wouldn't call it bullshitting, but they can have like a long monologues or like just like explaining things. And at the end, you're like, and what do you want to tell me now? So just make sure that like this is something you want to take into consideration with imaginers. Then there are promoters who are very charming, likable. They're very solution oriented. They're very resilient. They're very action oriented as well, I would say. And they're also a bit like the thinker. I think that those two get along quite well because one is very organized and likes taking responsibility. The other one is very action oriented, needs dynamic, and both of them have the like have point like getting ideas across very easily, like very direct, like coming to the point fast and not like explaining things super complicated. And then there's a harmonizer. It's a very warm and compassionate person. They they really understand and care about the feelings of others. Um, they respect others who value their emotions. So for them, it's very important that not anyone is just like coming to them and being like, hey, your emotions are like not real or they're not true. They don't have a reason to exist. Stuff like that. They would hate that. Um, that's also why they're very empathic and harmonical, and they need to be recognized as a person. And then, last but for sure not least, we have the persister. The persister is a person that is very value oriented and like has very strong ethics and a moral. And because of that, they also respect strong ethics and morals of other people. Um, but they are also very willing to hear them out. They're very dedicated to personal and professional development as well. And I think that, yeah, they're a very unique kind of contribution to every everyone's team as well. And I think that now that you see all of them, first of all, try to imagine which of them are you. Maybe you are not one of them, but you're a mixture of two of them. That's super fine. I'm a mixture of two of them for sure. Most of my team members right now are a mixture of one or two. So that's really fine. And then it for sure helps you understand your people better. If you, for example, know one of your teammates is a thinker and the other one is a harmonizer, you can form your appreciation around that. You can, about with the thinker, you can be like, you did an amazing job. I love the spreadsheet that you created. I love how everything is like filling itself. I love the presentation that you held yesterday. You had a really amazing point there. I think it was super good to explain what you were talking about. It was so understandable. Thank you so much. Um, or also, when you have the harmonizer, you can really appreciate them as a person. You can be like, hey, thank you for always being there for me. You're a really great contribution to the team. And both of them will feel like this is the exact thing that they needed to hear. And if you know things like that, this will help you a lot in appreciating your team and in really like making it easier for them to work with you, or like the other way around. But also, it can give away a little bit of like potential conflict, I would say. So, on one side, there are, for example, the promoters and thinkers who are very, very similar and very alike. But they might conflict with the imaginer because they need a lot of time to explain their ideas. They think very complex. It might be like kind of like hard for them to get straight to the point. And then there are the thinker and the promoter that are like, bro, can you like finally finish your sentence and your thought? So you can already see also like where it might be a bit of like conflict potential or where certain team members will be challenged a bit more. Yes. And as soon as you have that figured out, I think it can help you for the rest of the year to like structure your work around that and your appreciation and meetings and just like your whole like team routine a little bit maybe. And there we are already at the team routine. So before we get into like specific things that every EB kind of needs to have, I want to give you some tips from my side because I think that one of the most important things for me when I was newly elected was I wanted to create a routine because as soon as you have a routine going on that is super fixed and it's a non-negotiable for your team members, then you have already the best foundation set. Because I think like it's I don't know how to explain it. Let's say it like that. If you have your routine set from a very, very early stage on, then as soon as like the harder stages with like a lot of stress, like everyday tasks or like unforeseeable things that come up, then those things are not that like confusing or like taking as much energy from your team if they already have a clear routine that doesn't need to be discussed over and over every week again. So I think it can also like help stabilize like a few situations a little bit. So that's why I would give you as my first tip: start with your routine as soon as possible. Start having one-on-ones in a very very fixed way. Start like from not September, I'm sorry. Start from January on having bi-weekly one-on-ones with your members. Have them put in your calendar with a bi-weekly reminder so that they're a fixed touch point for you to have weekly one-on-ones from January onwards, because then you will make sure that you actually have like the routine already set as soon as February starts and as soon as all the work starts and like all the tasks come in, you already have that foundation set and it's non-negotiable for them that there are those EBMs. Also, you don't need to reschedule them every week, which is amazing and it will take a lot of energy away from you. Then also plan your team standards in advance. Plan out, and you will have to do that anyhow at TACO, so that's a thing that gets taken away from you a little bit anyhow. Um, so plan together with your VPTM when you will be delivering which team standards. That's super, super important. And then you really just need to follow the timeline that you set in the beginning and don't need to think over that again. And be consistent. Be consistent in everything that you do with them. Be consistent in having EBMs every week. Don't have EBMs in like sometimes bi-weekly, sometimes monthly. Never do them monthly. Like if you do that, what are you doing with your team? Then again, weekly, like be consistent. Same with one-on-ones. Don't tell them, yes, this month we will have them bi-weekly. After that, you don't have it for 2 months and then you have it monthly again. Like it's just like inconsistent, like and weird for them to understand your logic behind that, you know? Because in the end, you can always explain the logic behind what you're doing, but how can you make sure that people like get that part, you know? But what they will for sure get is what they see from you. And the actions that you take. So therefore, rather let your actions speak than the words. Because that's also like another point on this list is you need to be a role model. You need to be a role model from the moment on that you're elected, not just to your VPs that you're leading, but also to the member that is joining from day one. They see you as the president and they look up to you. It sounds a bit like, what? Someone is looking up to me like I'm just a normal person. Yes, but for them, you're the president. So you really need to be a role model. If there is a sharing space, you're gonna share. If there is a meeting, you're not gonna come late, but you're gonna be the first person in the meeting. If you're having an EBM, you're not the first person leaving that meeting. You're the last person leaving that meeting, waiting for your members to leave first. There are just certain things that you need to be really careful as a leader that maybe you don't know that they get like that they come across that way, but they make like small things. And those small things are part of the role modeling process that you really need to like kind of like just like I don't know, figure out yourself. And then have initial expectation setting. What communication channels are you going to use for what? Are you going to have a Slack channel? Are you just going to communicate over WhatsApp? What are you going to use for what? How many follow-ups will you have with your people? What is the style how you will track them? Are you going to track them through following up with them in person and like writing them every day? Are you going to track them by looking at the tracker every day and then following up once a week in EBM and the second time a week in a one-on-one? All of this has to be figured out by yourself and your team members. There is no right or wrong I can give you for that. And the things that you for sure need to have in your routine is daily tracker checks. How is the situation evolving, especially next year when we have new products, when there is like operations restarting again after this whole like situation going on. So especially then tracking will be important. Weekly EBMs, weekly or bi-weekly BOP calls. This always depends a little bit on the BOP that and on how the MCP is handling it. Then monthly one-on-ones plus PDP, monthly review, and then there are also a lot of times LCP task forces as part of the national board. So that's also part of your routine. And then we come to the team phases. And the team phases are super important to understand because this will take a lot of pressure away from you. So those are the team phases or stages defined by Tuckman, and there are 5 stages. I will talk about performing and adjourning not that much because I think that those are the nicer ones. But I will get a bit more into detail about forming, storming, and norming. So the forming phase is at the very beginning. You have your members selected. They're quite anxious about it because they have no clue what to do. Maybe transition is just happening or didn't happen yet. Maybe they just started their term on the 1st of February and they're like still quite unsure what to do. Yes, and it's just like a little bit of like getting to know each other, getting to know working with each other, and like being in this new team with a new leader, with new members. Like, it's just a very different situation. And it's like just the initial few weeks, I would say, where you have to understand your team members, your new goals. And in this time, people are looking up to their team leader a lot because it's a new team. It's like all of them are kind of lost. You probably too, but they don't know that you are as well. And that's fine. It's the beginning of the whole team experience. And then at some point, there's a storming phase. And let me tell you, I know teams that try to avoid the storming phase. I know team leaders that try to, like, they really wanted the storming to finally start because they were like, I know that it's coming. I wanted to, like, be done with it already. And every team has it at different parts. Some teams have it several times throughout their whole team experience. That's super fine. The storming is the first time when the situation is getting a bit tense. Like people start having first discussions and like start arguing a little bit and having controversies. And how you can recognize the storming is people will start storming with you first. You're the team leader, you're the person that is probably in the most contact with all of your VPs, and your VPs between each other are not working that much with each other because they're all head of their own area. So chances are high that they will storm first with you. And then you will get the whole situation. You will know we are in a storming phase. And you know what you can do? Embrace it. Embrace the storming, have conversations, like the things that you discuss them through. It's fine. You get to understand your members better. And in the end, after that, it will be a bit less tense. People maybe start to like really understand each other better. Um, Maybe for them it will be a little bit hard and they will struggle with it because maybe they never had a storming in a team before, but also explain to them like, hey, it's fine that we like have an argument right now, but like let's keep it based on facts, let's keep it based on things that are important as a team, and then we can move on. And then after that there will be the norming part. It's you will start to work more effectively together, and like the whole routine is like slowly establishing as like super like self-going. I don't know how to say that. Whatever, you get what I mean. The routine is established. The members respect each other. They respect their work. They also respect their differences. They agreed on the team rules. They trust each other. They help each other out, and they slowly start making progress. The operations and everything slowly starts going. Like they become more self-driven, more independent, and this is when everything starts like going up. Then there's like the performing, the adjourning, and like all of that. So that's really amazing. And also, what you will recognize as an LCP is people will need you less. And I think that's always the ultimate goal of a leader, in my eyes. This is a very subjective opinion that I'm voicing here. Um, to me, the ultimate goal of a leader is to have a team that can work without them, because in my opinion your team members should not be depending on you in order to do their work and in order to like work with their teams with their area, but they should have you as a backup, but they should be able to do it all themselves. Because on one side they're the head of their areas, on the other side it's like, what would they do if you're suddenly gone, you know? It cannot be that the whole else is breaking together just because the LCP would be like gone suddenly, you know? So I think the ultimate goal is always to have a very functioning team that, in the worst case, can also function without you. And I think that would be the optimal. Yes. And then we're already moving on to team meetings. I am sure a lot of you are already team leaders, are already VPs, and you already had a lot of team meetings. But if you prepare a team meeting, again, there is no thing of like, this is the perfect way to do it, but you need to answer a few questions first, as I feel like in every step that we had so far. You have to ask first who is going to be in the meeting, how many people are attending, and who is the person presenting, so you know your audience. Then you have to answer for yourself what is going to be presented, what is the topic, what type of meeting is it? Is it a one-on-one? Is it a team meeting? Is it a working group? And what is the goal of the meeting? Is it to report? Is it to have a brainstorming? Is it a call to action? What is the like? What is the desired outcome that you strive for? Why are you having the meeting? Again, is it a reporting? Is it a working space? Why is it that the people are even coming here? When yeah, when and where? Where is it happening? Try to I recommend you try to choose a calm area, like maybe secluded locations, closed rooms, all of that, where little interruption is happening. Also choose the location based on the type of meeting. If you have an online meeting, have a shorter meeting than you maybe would have physical. Create more interaction. Um, don't make them too knowledge heavy. Share the output afterwards, stuff like that. Also, when you have bigger meetings with more people, try to not go into very loud areas. Try not to go into hallways, into cafes, because there will be a lot of disruption going on with waiters coming, ordering drinks, and stuff like that. So that will be very confusing. If you have a one-on-one, that would probably be totally fine, but maybe not for bigger meetings. And then also ask yourself, when is it happening? Is it going to happen after a very long day of uni and all of your people are probably already going to be tired when they attend to the meeting? Then try to make it more interactive. Try to have it a bit shorter. Um, um, and yeah, also like try a little bit to take their emotional and physical stage into consideration when you decide on the team meeting and like or when you create it, so you can also kind of see a little bit like if you know all of them are super stressed out because it's exam period, then maybe you don't want to have a very heavy meeting with like a lot of discussion, a lot of conflict potential, and like a lot of information because your people are gonna be probably storming again. So yeah, just like take those things into consideration and then you can start preparing your team meetings. Again, those questions are not just for team meetings, they're in general for all meetings that you could possibly prepare as an LCP, LCMs, board of leaders meetings, all of that. And then, how should your meeting look like? So, first of all, every meeting should be output focused. Don't have meetings for the sake of having meetings. This is the biggest bullshit ever because your members will not understand why they're here. They will not get anything out of it. And you will just have a meeting, but no one really gets something out of it. And I think that's just a waste of your time and it's a waste of their time. And I think that's unfair. So don't just try to have a meeting, but really try to put effort into your meetings so that they actually have a good output for everyone. And with a good output comes a clear call to action. Never end a meeting just like, yeah, so here we are. Tell them what to do next. Like, okay, and now we will have a working time so we can like already work on the strategies, or after an LCM, yeah, and now please fill this form or please do this or whatever, you know? Also, again, there are just some basics that really need to like happen all the time. Prepare the agenda beforehand. Don't prepare the meeting 5 minutes earlier. And even if you do so, please don't. But even if you do so, don't tell your members. No one wants to hear how unprepared their leader is. No one. So even if you did the meeting quickly, don't tell them because this is just even more unprofessional. Be punctual again. You're the person leading the meeting. You cannot come late. Um, Look for full attendance. If someone has excused themselves beforehand and gave you a valid reason for their excuse, that's okay. Still make sure that people are not excusing themselves too much. And also, if someone didn't come to the meeting unexcused, follow up with them why they didn't come. And have common expectations. Um, what is the team meeting for? So maybe not one thinks it's brainstorming, the other one knows it's just a reporting or whatever. So just that all of them are aligned and none of them is disappointed with the meeting. Here you have a possible meeting agenda. In general, I think you don't need to prepare your meeting that in detail. I don't like having it that detailed because it would stress me as the person leading the meeting. But again, for anyone, what they want to do, and like everyone should choose what works for them. Therefore, adapt your agenda and like adapt how you prepare your meetings to yourself and to your people that you're working with and to the 5 Ws. So yeah, be adaptable. Don't take everything I tell you today or anything any of us LCPs current tells you as like this is the only way to do it. There's always 100 ways to do it. So just figure it out for yourself. That's the beauty of Isaac. And last but not least, if you have any other questions, let me know. Write me, do whatever you want to do. I also have an email address, but I didn't put it here because most people, anyhow, get my email address wrong. So just write me a WhatsApp, it's quicker. Um, it's way easier as well. So if you have any questions about team management, but also just concerning anything else about the LCP education or application, I created the application. So if you don't understand a question, I can explain it to you. Yes, and in general, if you just want any more knowledge, if you have questions about diverse LCP topics, or you just want to get the reality of an LCP that is not from your LC, hit me up, ask me questions, and yes, thank you for coming to my session today. And yeah, I hope it was helpful. And yeah, good luck preparing your application, future LCPs. Have fun.